Okay, so how's everybody doing? So this is going to be like a mega update and analysis. I want to share a lot of my thoughts and my plans and why I made certain decisions that I did, because as maybe most of you know, every layout is different. Like if I was to give you the prototype photographs of this location that you see here, which is about right from the bottom of the screen down to the Axton building at the very end, is probably a quarter mile or a little bit less from the shoreline where I, was first inspired to do this, to build this in HO scale. And I knew that I would have to, apply selective compression to the scene, like to this particular 10-foot section, in order to pull it off, because you never have enough space to do what you want. Like I'll show you just before I go further into this, which will have to probably be in multiple parts. It just depends how long it is. Like the actual update, I don't know what people can tolerate for length, but we'll see how that goes. So this particular scene right here, let me just show you a short video clip of the actual location that I took before I built this actual section that inspired me to want to build this particular location and section of the layout, okay? Okay, so you can see that, well, you will see that this particular location, I took elements of this area and compressed them into like a postage stamp scene. Like the whole purpose, and I'm going to just speak directly here. I'm not going to apologize for what I'm going to say, because I want to just say what I feel, what I say. And it's all relative to why River Road is developing in the way it does. And we all have or view that differently. And hopefully you can glean something from it, okay? Or maybe you can relate to what I'm saying. That's up to you. So model railroads, or the shelf layout in this case, is unique because you're building on a smaller footprint. Like, for example, like I designed a maquette model on the footprint before I even did the track plan. I knew that I had a 12 by 11 or so room, so my goal was, and this might sound a little unorthodox to some, but there's different ways of going about planning. Some people are very mathematical and some people are very visual. That's the unique beauty of the human sentient when it comes to creativity. We all have an end game and we all go about it in similar ways, and we go about it in very unique and different ways as well. So I wanted to have an opening here. As you can see, this curved fascia is the entryway. It's probably the widest point of the layout as well. And it has a kind of a wine glass curve. So when you walk in, there's no, like the viewer never feels, and I've tested this with family, they never even notice the fascia. I'm not going to talk about the upper valance lighting yet, but I will mention what I'm going to do with that eventually. It's up high and visible for a reason, so I can get in to the layout into areas where I need to reach without tearing the whole thing down with my big fat head. So, but that all gets lowered eventually once the scene is complete. So the lower curved fascia was designed this way because I don't want any corners. I don't want any right angles. I don't want, anything to impede or distract the viewer. As soon as the viewer comes into the room, which includes me every day, I want to be immersed into the scene right away. Like I don't even see up here. Like I don't see any of this. I don't pay attention to it. You see it now because of the wide angle of the camera, but when you're viewing it, we have a unique ability to filter things out, and the imagination sort of fills out the rest of the scene. So what we see on social media never really correlates accurately to how you view the layout live. But when I was viewing the location live, I knew that I had a dilemma, because I have this 1/4 mile long location. Okay. Maybe not quite a 1/4 mile, I'd say maybe just over 1/8 of a mile, but that's still quite a ways, and that's a real challenge to squeeze into 10 feet. Because that's what it is from here, this edge down to Axton Steel, it's 10 feet on the shelf layout, but actually 1/8 of a mile or so on the actual prototype. But I knew that I wanted to have a backdrop, which eventually I'll have a painted backdrop, but the skyline, meaning this here, I knew that I wanted visual interest there, and I wanted the ability to have an entryway to introduce trains, which I can, in the same way that I can introduce trains in the imaginary world, bridge traffic, etc., off layout from below, like and onto the layout to, to operate, etc. But I knew that I wanted to model this particular area because it's really cool. I'll show you another clip as you go down towards the long warehouse, which is further down, which I'll get to on the layout in a bit, but I just want to show you that clip as well, how neat it is. Okay, so the challenge was is how am I going to fit, you know, the brewery, and there's a warehouse in the middle, and then the long one. So they all had to be compressed, but they were all compressed differently. So I decided that after I had built the barge slip, which I took on first because that was the linchpin of the whole deal. It was the feature staging, operational marine feel and look that I wanted, and I wanted to build it as close as I could to the prototype, but I never had plans. But I've discussed about that in the past, about how I draw plans from photographs, and I was really happy with the way that turned out. But I knew that I wanted a feature building on the back wall here, which is where the layout ends with its fascia. You can see right there on the wall, right? And this is a building flat on an angle that pops in. Like everything is component style and pops out. But it was the extractor in this particular building when I got back there that really pulled me in. I thought it had so much character. And then, of course, there was the sort of alleyway feel that I just thought would be so much fun to model before I installed the trees, even though I didn't want to hide the whole backdrop or that scene with all the trees from a view further out, like let's say from the edge right here. But I wanted a more depth and a richer scene, like a multiplicity of views. And the best way to do it was to create a type of linear divider as opposed to a sectional divide like we would use a building or trees for. I wanted to run it parallel with the length to allow the viewer to see through some of the trees and get curious as to what's going on, and then to actually view it from this end and even operate, which I'll show you a couple more pictures and a video of this particular view when you're operating, looking down what I call the brewery alley. Okay, so that created quite a rich experience, you know, most notably for me because I'm around it all the time, and for anyone else that views River Road. There's a lot to look at just in this area alone, which is another reason why I love the shelf layout genre, because I can plan and focus in on those types of themes in a more condensed way, and still exercise all the skills and the interests of the model railroad hobby on a smaller footprint.